Welcome, everybody. This is one of the last breakout sessions in Fyuz 2023. Title of the session is Test and Validation Summit, focus on open transport. So we are going to have a very interesting agenda for the session today. First of all, thanks for attending the event. I hope really that you enjoyed the show, the presentations, the conversations, and all the businesses that you have been able to make here. My name is Arturo Mayoral. I'm Technical Program Manager for the Open Optical and Packet Transport Project Group at TIP, and I'm going to be the moderator of the session today. But also, I'm going to make a short introduction about the status of the community. So, Open Optical and Packet Transport community is one of the biggest and more successful stories across TIP. Back from 1919, this community has started to produce different product technical requirements and specifications, and a lot of operators are joining us in this journey. Leading this journey, we have Oscar González de Dios, who is going to present later on in this session as well, and Johan Hortas, which are our new co-chairs that they have been being presented to the community this year, alongside with other big operators such as Vodafone, KDDI, Meta, Turkcell, Orange, MTN, Deutsche Telekom Gold, and TIM, and many others that we are also constantly working with them. Part of the major achievements of this community is to put in practice a test and validation program. We are especially proud of that. We will see later during the presentation and also across the presentation today how this test and validation program in TIP is kind of a successful story for us. There is already more than 35 issued patches for commercial products around the different technologies in the OOPT portfolio. And these are supported by commercial and lab trials activities, which together with operators and members of the community, we are conducting based on these common technical requirements and test plans that are being defined by the community. Long-term goal, or let's say final objective of all these technologies is commercial deployments, and we have a flagship technology, DCSG, the Disaggregated Cellular Gateway, that from 1919 have been deployed more than 27,000 units around the world. For 2024, we are going to continue scaling on commercial deployments with DCSG, but also with the new technologies such as DDVR, Phoenix, and Cassini. We are getting mature on the test and validation for the certification of the MAST program, and we are releasing new products and solutions through the Mantra subgroup and DOR with the disaggregated aggregation routers. So it's a very exciting moment for this community. It's important to say that the community is also including the physical simulation environment subgroup, focusing on the planning of optical disaggregated open networks, and the network operating systems, which is also a very important asset of the community, and we are going to see why. First, we have been able to certify the first whitebox transponder in OOPT, Phoenix transponder, this year. It is a really recent announcement that this product has been certified. Lloyd is going to be explaining now in more detail this activity led by MTN and NTT Communications. Trials and deployments around the globe from DCSG and DDVR. We're going to comment some of these cases in the next slide. The NOS and Goldstone project, as I was mentioning before, is a key important part of the community, which is empowering different disaggregated white boxes across the portfolio of OPT solutions with a common open source network operating systems. And MAST, the mandatory use cases for SDS transport, which is a subgroup within OPT, led by the major operators I described before, is started to be able to certify the first solutions complying with the technical requirements of defined by this subgroup, and it is starting also with the testing in the labs, with the silver batch testing this last quarter. So this is kind of the map of major deployments and activities going on, or that has, let's say, been achieved in the last year from last Fyuz to this Fyuz. I think that it's importantly to remark the continuous deployment of DCSG at the scale. The first deployments at Turkcell and KDDI of DDBR, including very outstanding result reported by KDDI on an about 40% reduction of the power consumption of this technology in rack space compared with traditional deployments or traditional routers. In the optical transport scenario, Multinet has been successfully deploying the largest open optical transport network based on Cassini, with more than 83 nodes and 7,000 kilometers of distance of fiber across Pakistan. And as I was mentioning, first Phoenix commercial deployments were deployed in Terraco, South Africa, and now MTN and NTT Communications are leading the certification process of this new product within the OOPT portfolio. This is just to illustrate the progress and how technologies are reaching all the milestones that has been defined in the project group to come from an idea, from a use case definition to a production. So really it's a long journey. It's more than 4 or 5 years that has been working together in many of these technologies. Others are a little bit newer, but the reality is that progressively we are accomplishing all those milestones and arriving to deploying these technologies at the scale. This is a potential demand of OOPT products for certifications in the upcoming years. So this is an analysis that we have done internally in TIP based on a current engagement that we have obtained on the different DTRD documents that we have been releasing in OOPT. So based on the number of responses, number of products, vendors that has been addressing our requirements, and a forecast of growth on the number of technologies that will get mature on the following years, we can expect that by 2026, we will be certifying more than 20 solutions per year and evaluating successfully more than 40 in the requirements compliance level bronze batch. So this is really important to pave or to introduce the topic of this session today. Test and validation is really important for OOPT in 2024. This is where we are scoping that many technologies will start to be testing at the scale because we are seeing this maturity coming from the technical requirements evaluations that we are seeing. And we really want that together as a community, we are able to make this a reality. For that, TIP is going to be focusing on releasing a scalable TIP certification program that can accommodate these volumes on the following years, and we'll collaborating with you on this journey as well. So we are going to start with the presentations from operators from OOPT. They are going to be presenting 3 case studies today, starting by Esther Lerosic from Orange. So welcome, Esther.
Okay, so good afternoon. I hope that you will not digest too much, and let's start. So with respect to test automation, let's start with automation. So first, there is a converged momentum of opportunities, so the opportunity to offer seamless services to customers while crossing several infrastructures, and the possibility to accelerate the end-to-end service delivery from weeks to hours. And there is a promise with automation to simplify and improve network operation, enable fast adaptation to changes, And there are some technical enablers, optical infrastructure openness, and standardization for automation. But operators still face a challenge for automating their network in a multi-vendor context, and this is where standardization and openness is really a key. So let's look at the journey for automation. So there are at least 3 steps for Orange. Now, today we can already have some automation based on proprietary network management systems. We can develop already some quick wins to solve operational pains and start the customer services and service provisioning in a multi-vendor context. The second step is based on partial disaggregation. So it means that we focus on the end part of the system, the transponder, that we can disaggregate from the line. Why the transponder? Because they are considered as 80% of the CapEx. And here the opportunities are to start to unlock the vendor dependency and to and for the supplier competition to reduce industrial hazard. And the main use case of it is IP over WDM. And then next step, full disaggregation. So fully rely on standards, no more proprietary interfaces. And apart from the modularity, white boxes, there is a possibility to interconnect infrastructure directly at the optical level. And have full end-to-end control of the infrastructure. And let's look at all these steps and what we did in Orange concretely. So the first quick win concerns topology and unified topology exposure. So each vendor exposes the topology in its own proprietary way, and this is a problem because when you want to consume it, it's very complex to develop tools that are meant for each of the vendor and also for each of the applications. So the idea is to have this unified topology exposure that can be then consumed by planning tools, by analysis tool, past computation, etc. So what we did so far is to export data from NMS and controllers directly with proprietary model and transform them into a standard model. So it was IETF at the moment because this was, at the time we started the work, the one that allowed to have impairment inside. So we managed to have this exposed from 2 vendors and then exposed to be consumed. These are some examples, so an IP controller, a commercial planner, a GMPY. And what is interesting in this space is that with this way of working, we prepare for the future when we will have the NMS or controller expose really the standard natively. So that's the first step. What the status on this step is that with this standard topology extraction, so we manage it, we could use it with GNPY, so this enabled to have like a virtuous circle where we could identify which were the parameters that were needed, check that they were available on the northbound interface of the proprietary, check that they were available on the standard, and if they were not, then have some discussion with the standard and try to push them. And this has been pushed to IETF, but also to ONF-TAPI. It's still going on, and we still request to have these standard interfaces, so TAPI, northbound of the interface of the NMS, to have a standard exposure of topology, to be able to consume them with our tools. And what we want to expose a bit more is to go for the inventory part. And on all this realization, TIP was a great help. GNPY is a TIP production, and it was really an instrumental to have this application and development of the impairment aware in the optical topology. Next step is a partial disaggregation. So as I told you, it's the fact of separating the transponder from the line. So don't focus on the architecture here. It's just an example. Just focus on the fact that now the transponders are outside of the line, and there are challenges. There are challenges because you need to have the topology, the inventory, the services across vendor. You need to have multi-vendor compressed computation. You need to have the configuration of the third party, the frequency, the power. You need to export all this data in a unified way across the vendor. You need to have the fine coordination between the line and the transceiver, notwithstanding with the hardware that must be compatible between the line and the transceiver. And in this case, standard is mandatory. And it is also really necessary to find the gap in the standard, and there was a really nice work done within TIP with the proof of concept Candy in 2021. And there is also this funding paper, the target architecture for disaggregated open optical networks produced by MAS. So where are we in Orange? So what we solved is that, again, we use GNPY as a reference, and we contributed to the production of this open config model, but this was really driven by TIP in this case. This was a TIP work. What is still ongoing is the identification of gaps. So the work is not finished. We need to do a bit more. And we need to push what is missing in the standards. But we also need to have some more test plan to have all of this consolidated. What needs to be solved is to have those tests automated and hopefully to have some convergence among the standards. Next step, the full disaggregation. So now you can imagine that you can mix also inside the line device coming from different vendors. And the flagship for this scenario is Open RODOM, and one of its realization is Transport PCI, which is an open source SDN controller which implements Open RODOM. And now I want to focus only on Transport PCI. So as I told you, Transport PC, so it's an open and interoperable SDN controller, and the aim of it is to reduce lock-in. So it's a usual argument. We want more openness, more interworking, and we want disaggregation to cope with a different pace of innovation from the line, from the transceiver. We want standard API to limit the development effort, and we want also to have the possibility to give feedback to standards, so having an implementation is really meaningful in this case. And this is also a tool to help to demonstrate what we want and showcase. And the fact that this is open source is nice because it's open to anybody, and it's also a way to have a reference implementation to show how we want the things to be developed. It also provides a test suite, and we are then coming to the test part of the presentation. So what can be learned of all these three steps I have described here is that standardization, this is fundamental, we need it. But what we need more is reference implementation, standard implementation in a way. And it's a bit more difficult because there is always room for interpretation in standards. At least there might be room so that one implementation that is standard is not compatible with one implementation that is also standard. And we need to solve this issue. So the solution we think is this reference implementation with shared guidelines, and in this case, MUST and TIP is really instrumental because TIP is producing documents that are de facto this standard or reference implementation guidelines. We also think that test plan that may act also as a implementation guideline, and this is a case that also MUST is producing. And it allows also us to produce feedback on the standard because and it's normal, the standard may still have gaps, and we need to give the feedback and to enrich that and to get to our target. We also think that open source is really meaningful in this case because it provides this reference implementation, and it's also a case that you can use for testing your devices and accelerate deployment. And then test automation, where you can imagine that it's not feasible to do all this, I don't know how many 20 badging manually with more than 100 tests per year. No, we need automation in this case. So in this regard, Orange is working on an evolutive test automation framework for the integration of network components in its network, and it's based on CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development or deployment, software production, and it's based on the 3 layers. So a robot framework layer that defines the test via scripts, Python library to pilot the device under test, and then cross-testing to orchestrate all these tests. And what we propose is that we could start with this framework within MUST to accelerate the test automation. So as a conclusion, so the automation journey requires to unlock the vendor dependency at every stage. Standardization is key. So we need that to achieve the openness. Open source and international collaboration and TIP. They are key to provide this reference implementation, demos, identify gaps, get feedback, and have this virtuous circle. And testing and test automation, they are instrumental to transform that into a success. Thanks a lot.
Esther, I will invite you to stay with us. The idea is that you will join Fireside Chat later on with the rest of the operators that are going to be presented. So now I'm going to introduce Oscar González de Dios, who is going to take the case study from Telefónica side.
Thank you very much. So now I'm going to go briefly through the journey that we have done in Telefónica to the disaggregated network. So just first I wanted to highlight that the scenario that we are targeting and is just the partial disaggregation. So still, the full disaggregation is nice, but we see it still far away. And this is the one that for us gives, let's say, the benefits for the upcoming years. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you the different phases that the methodology that we have followed in Telefónica since the beginning. Okay, so we created the iFusion project in Telefónica, and we followed a methodology based on use cases. Okay, so first of all, what we did is get together, sit down with our operations, define these use cases, get these requirements, and once we get all of them, we prioritize the different use cases, and we create a roadmap of these use cases. Then we go with the vendor, okay, and these are the set of use cases that we need from here, okay, and we get their feedback. Then, okay, based on their feedback, we update also the roadmap because there must be to align. And then we start this process of testing, and once the use cases are ready for production, okay, we take it into production. And this is a continuous cycle that we have been doing several years from now. So every year, okay, we go back and we collect these requirements to advance. Okay, so for example, now in the roadmap that we have in Telefónica, which also is aligned with the Transport API set of use cases, is that for this year we are considering 45 use cases and increasing up to 60 use cases. And for example, this is like when we ask the suppliers, okay, they tell us, hey, this is what I can achieve. As you can clearly observe, we are not always able to achieve the 100%, but that's hope to increase every year. Okay, so what have we done? So let's go first with the controller part. Okay, so we need to be able to test the interfaces of the SDN controllers, of the aggregate or the line systems or aggregated systems. So in this case, we test the transport API, and for this we are using either Postman to be able to launch manually the request. When I say manually, I mean it's half manual, but it's not, let's say, like that you launch a full collection. But first, you need to understand that for the initial phase, I mean, you need to understand more what are you doing and what are and to have a more analysis. And once you have passed that phase, you can automate it. Okay, so for the full automation is where we use a collection of tools with the help of some Python tools, and we do an analysis of the JSON that we get. That is all compliance to the standard, and there is where we analyze this if there are deviations with the schema, etc. Okay, so that's a two-step process. Okay, first it was more manual. Once as Esther mentioned before, I mean, once you have the 100 test cases with all the vendors, it's impossible to run always manually. But also, the mistake is also try to go directly to the automated, because sometimes we started sometimes going too fast with the automation, and then sometimes you get things badly done because you are not testing properly. Okay, so it's two steps. So here we use as a reference. Here we are focusing on the TAPI 2 and 3. Okay, so we expect to be there still for a few years. Okay, so here we want something that is stable. We are building all the tooling that we are building on top is based on this specification. So this is why we want it to be stable enough. Okay, so we have a set of use cases that vary from the alarm, discovery, inventory, etc. That once we get all these automated tests, okay, we generate this compliance report, and we continuously work with the vendor to solve the issues that have been found. Similar thing happens also not only in the northbound of the controllers. Now this is just focused on the open terminals. Here the difference in the open terminals is just here we are following all the TIP documents. Okay, so we are on the one hand following the detailed technical requirements, and also the test plan that was developed within Telecom Infra project. Okay, so here we are following that, and in order to do the tests, what we do is to first of all just to see the detail and to understand the behavior. We always use Junk Suite. Okay, so just in the graphical, that you put the request, you make the different requests, and you do the analysis of the answers more manually, and then using GNMIC, we are able to also to test not only Netcom, but also we are using the GNMI, and with the Grafana and Prometheus, we are able to create a dashboard of the information that we are collecting from the open terminals, and we are able to do the and more or less automated dashboard. Okay, so I think here with this one also we went through these first evaluations. Okay, that you are in TIP that we are gonna share soon, and once we execute the test plan, okay, we see how much have you compliant. So here, just to see the order of magnitude, here we are about 100 tests. Okay, so as Esther mentioned, I mean, it's a huge amount of tests, taking into account the number of vendors that we have, and taking into account that we are testing not only the configuration and reading via Netcom, but also telemetry and the use of GNMI. So the complexity is big. Just take into account that in our roadmap we have not only tested, okay? So because it is okay, it's testing, no. I mean, this is also, it has helped us. So here in Telxius, we were able, mainly because we were, and the operation needed to, okay? So it was, okay, sometimes, you know, in the pandemic, you know what happened in the pandemic, the supply chain was quite bad. So we required to be able to put or to use the transponders of one vendor over the other, and we put in production quickly, with the help of the suppliers, a solution that might not be the target architecture, but is good enough to solve that point. Okay, so in this case, what happens is when we use the controller of the supplier of the transceivers, the transceiver that, and use it over the line of the other supplier. And here, the use case that was put in production was mainly for all the monitoring, visualization, etc. So it was mainly read-only what we required. Okay, the interaction between the two domains. Okay, because what we wanted to see is to have the operation ready. Okay, so to have the end-to-end visibility. So we achieved that. It was also made public. So there is also a white paper that was produced based on this experience. And so as it worked, also we did the other way around. Okay, so not only Infinera over Siena, but also in this case it was Siena over Infinera. Okay, because we had in Telxius we had lines from the two suppliers. Okay, so we were able to produce the scenario the other way around. Okay, so this way we could get all the topology and the transceivers described and got from the network, and also integrate seamlessly the open terminals. Okay. So as I mentioned, our final target architecture, we want to go for the more, let's say, fully open model, but this case is in production. Okay, so it's not something that you say is in test. No, this is already in production. Also, the other use cases that we have in production, okay, so it's not only test, okay, is the transport API from the controller. So here in Brazil, we have 4 vendors. Colors does not have anything to do with the vendors, okay, so don't try to get any relation, so that is pure randomness, okay. What you can see here is the number of successfully tested use cases per category per supplier, and what we put in production was what was common among all vendors. Okay, so here, as you can see, what we have now in production is mainly the discovery-related use cases. Okay, so it's basically get the context and the service, get the topology, get the connectivity services, being able to make the correlations with the external inventory and the inventory model. Okay, so with this, we were able to at least take this information in a normalized way to the planning tool to be able to do the analysis of the spectrum, what if scenarios, etc. So at least this is done through full standard. Okay, that I mean, compared to what, let's say, what we had before, I mean, it was let's say a huge change. Now, just you see that the subset of use cases, I mean, is not the full set, but we are on track to get all the full set of use cases that we want to put in production. So with this, I think this is a good sample of the journey that we have done in Telefónica to go on. We expect to continue.
So thank you, Oscar. And we are going to go next with our next speaker, Lloyd from MTN. Welcome, Lloyd.
Thank you. Thank you, Arturo, and thank you, Oscar and Esther. Always nice, to meet in person. I think most of the time, we talk online, being from, SA. So I'm extremely happy to be here. and also meeting all the other people that are in the audience today. So it's been quite a hectic couple of days. So I am happy to share with you the outcomes of the test that we did for Phoenix in MTN South Africa operation. So just to share some highlights from the executive summary, the snapshot. So we trialed the NEC solution, Winston Galileo Flex T product, in line, with the guidelines from, the TIP, disaggregated optical, system Phoenix test plan version 1.0. And this we did, in a live network in South Africa, just to prove that this is a real thing and not in the lab. And we tested this over 100 GE. Clients that sat on, both ends of, the OLS, with an existing, the boxes being, third party, of course, to test, the concept. So this happened over a 64-kilometer, a total end-to-end, 5 hops with 3, ROADMs in, well, we didn't always have ROADMs in between, but OLS, in between. So we've managed to do this, but we couldn't, do the, 400 gig test. So we missed out on the, the high capacity, part, as well as, the distance. And we appreciate, the collaboration we received from, NTT, completing, the part around, the high capacity, as well as, the distance to really support us, towards, the badging. So with all of that, combined effort, the community found it, satisfactory, and concluded that, this constituted successful validation of the results to earn us a silver badge awarding to NEC and Western Solution. So this is in a nutshell, the story, end to end from, our end. So we talk a little bit about, the trial scenario, the topology in MTN South Africa. So I did hint, the amount of hops that we went, and the distance that we took, to conduct the POC. So Centurion is, I don't know, how familiar are we with, South Africa as a country? I know that a lot of people know Johannesburg. So Fairland is pretty much in Johannesburg. So this is, MTN head office. And then Centurion, that's out about 60 kilometer plus, towards more the north of, Joburg, of Johannesburg. And the allocated wavelength was in the C-band, the 192.40 terahertz, for the purposes of what we were doing with the POC. So this was connected across, the DWDM, OLS. And as I indicated, the distance, 64 kilometers, end to end, 5 sites, including all the nodes along the route. So the test result summary. So a total of 128 executable, test cases, were tested, including 79 documentable, test cases. I think what is key in this slide is that everything, came together to give us, enough, pass to acquire, a silver badge, from, the critical requirement test cases, mandatory requirement test cases, as well as some of the optional requirements, test cases. And we are happy, about that. So some notable, highlights, from, the results. So it wasn't, for lack of trying, but we could not, get it right on the 400, gig, due to not, the entire route not supporting, the flex grid ROADM. So what the entity, trial, did, it covered, that part that, we could not do. So notably 13 out of, 16 of the cases were successfully validated in the entity trial, with the exception of, the 400 gig beyond 500 kilometers and the 300 gig beyond 1,000 kilometers, which is really swings and roundabouts if you consider what was required, for the test. So it did not play any, critical role in, preventing, the badging, to go ahead. And then there was a matter of the SQU1 hardware limitations from the Winston Galileo Flex T product, which only, complies with that product specification. And, the 400G GE client interfaces, not being, supported. So from, the discussions we had, internally, is that, going, forward, there are discussions that are taking place, in the background to have this, supported going forward, on SQ 2. So the documentation, provided, so the detailed test plan, report, which provide evidence of the 100 test cases that were, executed. From a product specifications, perspective, hardware integration matrices, including that of the hardware and the software releases information were also provided. The installation and user manuals that provide, evidence, to the hardware integration and installation process over the ONI and the TIE recommended hardware abstraction layer also were provided, and also the transmission performance metrics from, the coherent pluggable manufacturers, including transmission nodes, were also, available. So in conclusion, some of, the key points, to be noted is that between MTN and NTT, we've managed to successfully complete, the Phoenix trial, with NEC, NOS version 1.2.9S, through the process, guided for, Phoenix Silver Badge. And then the reports, were provided, and further documentation indicate enough evidence of, the test executed, and that the results obtained through enough evidence for successful completion of, the TIP Phoenix test plan. So based on all of that, it was concluded and recommended, of the DOS group to award, the silver badge, which we are really, really proud of, to NEC and Winston Galileo Flex T, limited to the specification, of course, of the hardware, requirements related to SQ1. So as MTN, we really, consider this massive successful story for Open Optical Packet, Transport, and looking forward to moving on to the gold badge, which involves some of the commercial elements to put the product into production. So thank you very much.
Okay, so can you hear me? Ah, no. Okay.
So it was a really, really nice presentation. So can you tell us a little bit more about what comes next in the Phoenix in the test and validation process?
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. So I think, first of all, it was exciting for us, in MTN, the results that came out of, this trial. Mainly because if you look at, our belief system, in MTN, we believe that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. And this comes through ensuring that, there is connectivity, but not just connectivity, but high quality, high capacity, connectivity. And what's been, pulling us back, it is the cost of, deploying this, connectivity. So we see a big opportunity, particularly for, the lower tier markets, that we have that don't always afford, a full-blown, say, DWDM, solution. That it really gives us an opportunity to expand, this capacity to all those markets, at a very cost, efficient way.
So the Phoenix solution is perfect for that?
Yeah, it's very perfect.
Great.
Yeah, so I think, the presentation from yourself, Esther, very, very exciting. I think, looking at, some of the good things that, you've been doing, it just backs, the question from, my end, on, the lessons that you've pulled from the experiences that you had while, testing the open optical, terminals for SDN, requirements. If you can, share those lessons, but also, what do you see, as, the benefits of some of the common test and validation, processes that you went through, together with, other operators that form part of, the TIP community today. If you can just share your thoughts on that.
So first, I would say the learning is that the test plan was really well made, and the device, that was a really nice test. Second, I would say that maybe we need some more improvement from our side to improve the test plan to be crystal clear, to go to this automation part. But also we need to be crystal clear because as I said, the standardization is not the same as reference implementation, and we need to be sure that all the implementation follow the same way of doing so. Otherwise, we will not achieve this interoperability. Then, regarding the power of, I would say, of TIP, regarding that is that altogether we can define this. Technical requirement document and reference implementation, go back to the standards, have this feedback to fill in the gap, correct what is needed, and go the step beyond and produce this automation testing that then will accelerate the development of these open terminals, and hopefully more than only the terminals. And accelerate also the delivery of the badges.
Yeah, no, thank you, Esther. Sounds like a very interesting, journey ahead. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so my turn for asking questions. So I found the achievement made by Telefónica really impressive. And I was wondering, what are the challenges that you faced when doing all this work regarding the adoption of SDN, of standard API openness?
So it was a long journey. Okay, so we started several years away until you see the nice results of the positive test and so on. You see that the first challenge was that the implementations did what we wanted them to do. Okay, so first we were a lot of tests with errors, and things were not as mature as they are now, so that was the very first challenge. And in that challenge, what really helped was having documents like the reference implementation that really made things easy for the implementation, and later on to be able to create a test plan from them. So that really helps. Okay, so for example, now we don't have the challenge today, but now because we already have the TAPI 1.3 RIA, for example. But when we move to the next one, to either 2.4 or 2.5, we need a similar document, or even with better quality, if it's possible, because that will really help. Okay, being able to see what has happened in the past, that's key. And the second point for adoption is also on us as operators. So we have had to teach the operation to live in a data model world. Okay, so just people were used to integrate everything the old way, we sell long times, and then use the GUIs, etc. And now we are changing the mentality to thinking data models, thinking controllers, changing data with open interfaces, changing these abstractions in common abstractions. So it took some years, okay, to teach this, to explain to the operations, hey, how this model works, how OpenConfig works, what is the relationship between the layers in Transport API, what are these abstractions representing to what you have in the reality. So it took a lot of time, but hopefully the good thing is that we had good support documents also, and we are producing good documentation also in TIP. And with that, also people in the company start to understand more and get the value. So then you drive the adoption faster, and then someone in your operation say, hey, I have a use case, and they can develop something quick. Because once they understand, and then let's say it spread the knowledge. Because at the beginning it was just few key people that understood TAP. It was like, okay, to understand that, you really need a super expert. Okay, so that was a really big challenge. I mean, not much people knew what was a service interface point or whatever did represent that in the network. And now, okay, it took us, and now it's still a challenge to make this, but it's a mentality change.
Well, thank you, Oscar, Lloyd, and Esther, for this very interesting conversation. Now I would like to let the audience to ask any question to our speakers today. So please, do you want to have any question? Please.
I would like to ask the three presenters, but maybe in particular Esther, because you talked explicitly about it. How do you see the role of open source software in these initiatives? Do you think that, I mean, we all know of a lot of successful open source initiatives in a lot of different industries and fields, but open optical networking is a rather niche area. Do you think that there will be enough traction to maintain and extend these projects, and above all, to productize them, so with testing, maintenance, releases, and all that we know is involved in productizing a software solution?
Okay, so if we are talking of GNVY or Transport PCI, I think that the first aim is really to produce a reference, to be a reference for the industry, and to help to focus on what is really meaningful for us, operator. An open source is better than any technical document, because open source, you implement it, you see exactly what is going on. That's the first aim. The second aim is to test. To test what can be produced against this open source, and In this way, you can also accelerate the development of the product the way you want. And then the third step, getting it into production, depends on the use case. If we focus on GNPY, for example, we believe that it is really instrumental in the cases where we need to make interworking between line and system which are from different vendors and do the pass computation across vendors. Might be difficult to do it with vendor tools, so maybe an external tool is good. And the fact that this is an open source, it's crystal clear. I mean, there is no secret behind. The model are known, it can be discussed, challenged, etc., improved. This is public. Now the drawback of what you say is that this needs to be maintained, and this is a challenge. But think that if we had to do it alone, inside a single operator, it would be worse. When it is exposed as an open source, we benefit from the whole community, not only vendors, operators, but also the academics. And I have, maybe I'm optimistic, but I have faith in that. I think it's better than having it internal. I think it's perennial this way.
Thank you.
There is any other question in the room? Otherwise, I would like to thank the speakers and to invite the last speakers of the session today. Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I would like to introduce Harald Bock, Stefan Ellingberg from Antron, and Infinera. They are going to give the last talk of the day. Thank you all.
Green. Yeah, thank you and good afternoon. So Harald and myself will give you the last presentation in this session. And for those who were at the Fyuz event last year, might remember that we gave a related presentation at one of the OOPT workshops, and I think the basic message then was that I think as a community we all did a great job in defining the architectures, the APIs, the requirement documents, and also did a nice job now in terms of testing. But from an implementation and from actual field deployment projects, we all felt that there are some missing pieces in the workflow around deployment and operating open networks. And after the presentation, actually, we got, I think, very encouraging feedback. Operators approached and said, this is exactly what is missing before I can go mass deployment. And also other vendors approached and said, we have exactly the same experience. And also at this event, I think we heard similar. We had similar discussions. There was this Open RAN panel yesterday, where there was also mentioned that the whole Open RAN thing slowed down a little bit, because of operational issues. Network or planning was mentioned as one of the issues. And based on that, I think TIP and OOPT and then also Artura had the idea that we could create a new subgroup focusing on these missing pieces, if you will. And this is actually what we want to propose today. So currently this is a proposal. It needs to be approved. I think we also need to define where this subgroup going to be in TIP. So this is where we are right now, but just as an introduction, and happy to get some feedback. So basically, from an overview perspective, like I said, I mean the topic is evaluating the entire workflow of how to bring all the TIP architectures and products into commercial field deployments. Also from an operational perspective, responsibilities and things like that. creating kind of cookbooks and guidance for those deployments, feeding back to the product groups and then project groups, sorry, and also feeding back to the documents we are producing, specifically about network planning, end-to-end planning. Yeah, in all those cases, integrating the various systems from different vendors, also the different releases. Harald will talk about that one, and the operational topics. And then finally, based on all the experience, and we heard a couple of examples today again, yeah, sharing best practices, yeah, so that other operators who want to go down that route can benefit from that. Yeah. Let's now go a little bit into details, what our idea is. Harald will cover that.
Thank you, Stefan. The idea was to try and find out what is it, what are the things that are still missing to make sure that we can achieve the common goal we all have of deploying, of a widespread deployment of the solutions we're defining in TIP and specifically in OOPT. And in the first step, we were going to focus on the solutions defined in OOPT, based on the test strategy defined in the test and validation program, based on the solutions defined in the different OOPT working groups, and get a group of people, ideally a lot of you in this room together, to find out the specific needs for deployment of these solutions in networks. And not just for deployment, because we call this plan, integrate, deploy, but this doesn't mean that we want to stop where we deploy in the field. We also want to look at the whole product life cycle and how do we do troubleshooting, how do we do maintenance, how do we introduce newer releases at a later point in time, and define what is needed for that. What are the criteria to do retesting, recertification of products? That I think would be one step. The other thing we wanted to look at is what are the operating models and roles? And one example that I've been discussing with a few of you, and this is an area where I get different answers, and some of us are not sure about the roles there, that is actually in planning, and who needs to provide which information into the planning process, who actually does own the planning and does the planning in practice. I think there are different ideas, and I think we in order to facilitate deployment and practical use of what we are defining, I think we'll have to start writing down examples of how this can be done. And writing this down and making it available to all of you is what we call deployment cookbooks. Just trying to, for specific cases, perhaps even for a subset of a solution, trying to write down what are the boundary conditions for deployment, make it easy to deploy and address these life cycle topics. The other thing is that we have a lot of experience in this room in all of these topics, and we heard Oscar talk about productizing as one of the solutions today. Esther talking about the test automation needed. So we also would like to make sure we can learn from actual deployments and improve what we do. So basically trying to establish a kind of a lessons learned process for all of us, which I think would be really valuable. And all of that in order to make sure that the work we do here is actually will end up in a lot of success and a lot of successful deployments. The whole approach will have to be based on a close collaboration with all of the TIP work streams involved. And I put the same graph into slightly different focus on this page, where this is more about the deliverables and what are the things we get from the work streams and we hand back to them. So the idea is to base this work in this work stream on the test and validation strategy defined by the test and validation program, base it on the target solutions and architectures defined in OOPT working groups. And together with, in collaboration between network operators, equipment vendors, system integrators, and the software ecosystem in TIP, define specific requirements for field deployments. For example, give back to the test and validation group that there are certain requirements for retesting so that we can combine different releases of different products in the field. Clarifying certain roles in planning or in other in troubleshooting, and giving that back into the working groups, as well as writing down an overall workflow of system deployment and potentially operations that we can also hand over as a document. So in the end, this working group is going to produce paper, or not paper anymore, documents electronically. We do not intend to duplicate any of the work done in the other working groups because essentially we produce output into those, and we hope to make sure that we can make it easy to operationalize the solutions we produce here. Ending in a learning process at the end, because I think this whole activity is a joint learning activity for all of the industry, for all of you in this room, and I certainly learn a lot every time all of us get into a room to discuss these topics.
And I think finally, we can do this. Obviously, this is something we cannot do by our own. So we need you, and maybe even more people who will contribute. But I think based on the feedback we got last year, I'm sure we will get a lot of contribution here. So like we said, the starting point is clearly the test and validation. That's the phase before we go into the field. So here, I would say the test and validation program is certainly an area where we need contribution. The other subgroups Harald mentioned, who are producing the technical requirement documents, will have their ideas, which are going to be relevant here. And then I think specifically here, if it's about integration and also then planning, the system integrators, I think could be a great source for input. And then if it comes to the actual deployment, I think of course, network operators should know how to deploy systems, but also again the system integrators, because this is their daily business, deploying end-to-end systems, multi-vendor systems, what is required there, but then also the vendors itself, because we are also involved in deployment and know what kind of workflow steps are required there. And finally, if then comes to the operational models, again, of course, network operators know how to do that. Again, I think the system integrators could help, because here it's really about what also Harald mentioned. It's managing this multi-vendor ecosystem, with different releases coming at different point in times. In time. Responsibilities from an end-to-end perspective, maintenance, fault locations, things like that, root cause analysis. And then, of course, again, the other subgroups who are also helping with commercial and field deployments in terms of sharing best practices. So that's just an initial idea of the kind of expertise we are looking for. So I would say a next step anyway will be that hopefully this new group will be approved, and then we need to define a process, how people can approach us, and then how we jointly can shape that group, and also the deliverables we want to create. Any final words from your side?
I think that last slide was probably the most important one. Once this is approved, we'll be looking for all of your help. So we all really look forward to that.
We need your help. That's we're not looking for.
Absolutely.
I don't know if there is any question. The presenters? Okay.
Thank you, Fabiano from Ripple. Well, I think it's a very, very good initiative now because actually at the end now all the equipment delivery need to have this kind of guideline. Just about the deliverables that you expose at the end. The idea is to have like a service certification like we have in the equipment certification. Then a vendor can say like this, I have the gold certification for my product and I have a gold certification for services also. Or is more like recommendations, like tip recommendations for a good delivery.
I think what we're trying to do here is to try to create input into that process. So basically, I mean the process defined so far has the bronze badges, the silver badges, the gold badges for individual products, and how they the gold badge and also solution testing, which means a combination of products. But then we have to think forward. What will happen when those different products have different releases, and what are the criteria to retest or potentially recertify, use test automation to do that? So the input of this working group would be to try and address those very practical questions and provide that as a feedback back into the process that is being run by the other working groups. Yeah? So we don't intend to add another layer of certification process. We want to make sure that the certification process actually can be used in practice throughout the product lifecycle.
Okay,
Is that
perfect.
Thank
Maybe just to add from my side, so I think the initial idea is, like Harald was saying, to create, I like this cookbooks, yeah, which would basically tell us, yeah, these are the steps you should follow, and then it should work, yeah. But maybe that's even something we could think about, that then also a specific blueprint, yeah, where we know that it's working, that this could also have a kind of a badge, yeah, maybe something we could think about. That's already good input, yeah, we haven't thought about. But first of all, defining the blueprints and the descriptions where we know, okay, this is how it should work.
Okay.
No? Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Yeah.
Is there any other question for the audience?
So what is the next step then, Arturo?
Thank you. I think the next step is, as Harald and Stefan had pointed out at the beginning, is getting this line on the overall TIP strategy. So right now, conversations with the test and validation committee started in order to see how this fits within the whole TIP. I guess it's important that we enforce the message that this subgroup, as an initial target, try to provide feedback and refine the current, let's say, ecosystem. It's not to build nothing really from scratch, but try to refine and to improve existing procedures, right? So I think that the next step is, as soon as we get this approval, announcing it on our regular OOPT monthly call and poll for partners, so that we can start to do a kickoff with all interested parties on this subgroup. I think there is time for other questions. Today I think that we are a little bit more flexible, so is there any other would like to jump in? Otherwise, I would like to thank the speakers. Thank you. And also thank you, everyone, for attending Fyuz 2023, and hope that you enjoy it a lot. Thank you very much.